Well, welcome to another episode of Real Estate AI Flash. Usually we have real estate agents sharing best practices on AI, but sometimes we get thought leaders in the industry that are doing some cool things. And today that is one of those episodes. And I have Jesse Pederson, Chief Technology Officer with Luxury Presence, joining the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Jesse.
Thank you, Rajeev. Great to have me here. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, looking forward to talking all things AI. But I gave you like an elevator pitch introduction for probably what is a storied career that's still in progress. So I'd love for you to walk the listening audience through how you got into real estate and bring us to today.
Absolutely. So my the bulk of my professional career has been in and around the built environment. So back in 2013, I co-founded a startup called Building Connected. We were in the construction technology space. So went very, very deep on understanding all the ins and outs and the software needs of specifically commercial construction. Had an amazing journey. Grew that from 2 people to 200 people over the course of 7 years and successfully sold that to Autodesk in 2019, makers of
Yeah.
AutoCAD. There, I got exposure now to the architecture space, right? Obviously, most buildings in the world designed with some sort of Autodesk software. Spent 3 years there managing a data team, data lakes, data warehousing, data processing, anything with data somehow flowed through my org. And then got introduced to Multi, CEO of Luxury Presence, and got to go a lot deeper on understanding his passion for the real estate space. What was nice is it jived also with my own family. My wife has her license. Her father is a very prolific agent in San Francisco. Her brother sells in this city. Her brother-in-law, like we have a lot of familial connections to the real estate industry. And there's a deep, deep connection, I would say, at Luxury Presence with the entrepreneurial spirit of realtors, right? The way we look
Yeah.
at it is there's 1.5 million entrepreneurs out there in North America alone. And I love that connection. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I thought, I have a ton of knowledge and experience in both data and the built space. Let's now take that to real estate.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to double down a little bit later on, maybe when we get to AI about construction. And I think like robots and where that's whole going, maybe we can kind of shoot the breeze on as we finish. But, you know, I started this podcast Jan 2024 weekly. So we're like at episode, when we're recording this, we're like at episode 87, 88, with the whole idea that this was sort of, the technology was growing at an exponential pace, Jesse, and we were sort of keeping up at linear pace, and we still never keep up.
Yeah.
When you were, what was your first like light bulb moment of Gen AI?
It would go back to 2022, late in 2022. So
Yeah.
I had started in Luxury Presence in the summer, and ChatGPT was really starting to just kind of make its way onto the scene. And Sam Altman actually invited a number of CTOs to the OpenAI campus. So went in there, met Sam in person. He sat, it was maybe like 12 of us in a room. And he was like, you know what? I want to show you all something that's not even released publicly yet, but want to kind of start to get your input on it. And he asked one of his software developers to come out, and she came out and she put her computer down on the table and she typed to ChatGPT and she said, I want you to program a game of tic-tac-toe for me. And she hit enter, and lo and behold, whatever it was, 15, 20 seconds later, there in a browser was a game of tic-tac-toe. And that was the moment for me where I was like, this literally changes everything. Until that time, and like even if you wanted to write a game of tic-tac-toe, you're hiring a software engineer. They're going to go to work for at least hours, if not days, building that out. And there in 15 seconds, we had something. Was it crufty? Was it rough around the edges? Yes, all those things. But I was like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is the worst it will ever be. And I was excited at the prospect of what it could do for instance, unit economics for me as a technology leader. Like, wow, I can create now more software more quickly. But the bigger unlock was, if it can do this for software engineering, what can this do for an industry like real estate? And
Yeah.
then that's really what got the wheels turning. And what was funny though is if you look now, that was late 22, right? I kind of liken it to what it felt like when cavemen first discovered fire. They're like, oh, we have fire, right? But like, how do you harness that, right? How do you move the fire from one place to the other without burning yourself, right? What are some of the tools you need? And so I think if you look at a lot of 2023 and 2024, a lot of it was us getting our head around how do we even use some of these capabilities, right? Like you said, the capability is growing at an exponential rate, and yet our thought process so often is linear, like, and we're always kind of behind. And it wasn't until I'd say this year, early this year, 2025, when we felt like, okay, we've really figured out how to harness fire. And as such, like we've increased our AI R&D investment over 300% just this year. But it started at that light bulb moment in 2022 in the OpenAI office.
Jesse, I was
Yeah.
feeding Cody.
I told you
And
my
what's
son would come in.
Jesse, I was feeding Cody because he was hungry.
Thank you, Hudson.
There you go. You are the first guest at this point, on my podcast that was in a very close, small, intimate setting with Sam Altman. I'm sure we'll have more people, but that was in 2022.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess just when they launched it or just about to launch it, et cetera. And that was my light bulb moment too. It was like Thanksgiving 2022 when one of my entrepreneurial friends, we were having Thanksgiving dinner together, says, you should go check out ChatGPT. And when it was all done, I signed up an account. I spent like 3 hours on it. And I was just what I could see there. Imagine from then to now, like we're 3 years. This November, it's going to be 3 years. I can't even, and we've come so far. But it's still early to your point in terms of how you harness the fire in real estate. And that's what I want to kind of get into with you. So you obviously lead a very successful company, be a CTO at Luxury Presence. It's very well known. Some of our top agents use you guys. So the genesis of getting you on the podcast was I received a very interesting email about how you guys are harnessing AI in various aspects of it, lead nurturing, marketing, and several things. So let's kind of dig into how you think about AI and how it's going to help a real estate professional using your platform.
Yeah, the big unlock for us, like as a cultural unlock, as a mental unlock for us, was that we are exiting a phase in which our job as technologists was to build tools for our customers, right? If you look at the last 2 decades, my job was to build tools to make your lives easier. In this new agentic phase, we really don't think of this as building tools for our customers. We are actually giving you all employees. And that mindset shift for us is like, it's no longer about building software. It's about training software. It's about training AI to fit your needs. I really think of it as like, we were, OpenAI, Anthropic, they've given us interns. And how do we now mold those interns and craft those interns into agentic, right? And when I say agentic, I mean entities with agency to work on your behalf, right? And really give our customers employees, a full marketing team, right? And so we started off and we released a suite of 4 teammates for you all. A blog writing agent, an SEO agent that actually goes through and makes optimizations on your behalf. Those 2 alone, by the way, just in the month of August since we released this, have completed 11,000 optimizations and or blog articles across our customer network. We have our lead nurturing agent, which actually goes out and saves you valuable time so you don't have to go and talk to every single lead that's generated. Let it do the qualification for you. And then our advertising agent, which then helps manage your spend, etc. So that's really the unlock for us, we're not building tools anymore. We're actually giving you full on employees. What I'm excited about, right? That's just what we focus on the first half of the year. And like I said, we've increased R&D investment 300% in this area. So it's like we're like at the tip of the iceberg of what we've got coming. Later this year, essentially the next iteration, our next employee around our blog writing is going to double down and make longer form content, more engaging content, more hyper local to your sphere of influence with some really engaging imagery, right? We understand how important aesthetics and brand is for our customers. Image generation technology is increasing at a crazy rate, and we've got some very, very cool things to show on that front. We will be introducing later this year a new advertising agent specifically for listing ads, right? And again, in the vein of like, what would you ask an advertising employee on your behalf to do? I would ask them to monitor the MLS, and anytime that you see a new entry of ours that goes into the MLS, I want you to immediately go and create compelling ad copy and create compelling ad visuals. I want you to go into Google and Meta, et cetera, and I want you to set up all those campaigns. I want you to tell me what I should be bidding on and how much I should bid and what kind of leads I should expect out of that. And then I want you to hit go. The only difference now is that you don't need to tell a human to go do that. You don't need to go pay a human to go do that. Right? Let one of our AI agents take care of that for you for pennies on the dollar.
For sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
And 2026, early 2026, I'm very excited. We are actively working on a social media agent. What is so tricky about social media agents, and both an opportunity and a challenge in one, is it has to so succinctly but accurately represent your brand.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's your face out there, right? And this hallucinations are not an option at that point, right? It's got to really, really nail who you are. And so we're really being thoughtful and taking our time and ensuring that what we put out there is a great, accurate representation of each person. And here's what's the fun part. We're not training one employee, which we then deploy to 15,000 customers. We're training 15,000 employees.
Yeah.
Sorry,
That's powerful. I want to double down on a couple of things you said. One is, it feels like we're in a transition for leadership in the real estate industry in terms of just managing humans
Yeah.
to managing humans plus digital workers, AI agents that you're talking about, we are in transition. I had an episode recently with my CEO, and I said you're the last breed of leadership that's only going to manage humans.
Yeah.
We're going to have people empowered to manage digital employees that do work on our behalf, and understanding that. So let's kind of double down on maybe the social media or even the advertising agent, just what goes into building one.
Yeah.
And the level of effort it goes, and that an agent can just sort of subscribe and kind of get that without having to do that, which clearly, agents don't have the capability, the wherewithal. Most agents don't. And that's the service that you guys provide. So in terms of the advertising agent, you just talked a little bit about, it goes to Google, kind of builds the ad, et cetera. How much of the best practices, what ads are working, go back into training the AI to get better over time?
Yeah. The beauty is because we are able to work with such a large customer base, all the data that we've been historically collecting we manage millions of dollars of ad spend on behalf of customers. All that data comes back and feeds a central engine we have, which we call Presence AI. Right? And that's the magic behind these employees that we are training on your behalf. It's all the first party data, second party data, third party data that we're able to collect and then feed back into these AIs, and they can all benefit. Like everyone benefits. The more people that are on the Luxury Presence network, right, the more benefit that you all get because these AIs are able to learn from each other.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense for sure. Maybe go into pick an agent and let's kind of dig into what goes into building one.
Yeah.
The level of effort of going, besides obviously you have your data warehouse, which is the Presence AI. That's where all the data signals are, and you tap into certain things based on what the employee you're building. Can you maybe dig a little deeper into? We may be geeking out here a little bit for most agents that are listening, but let's not get too deep. But let's talk a little bit about what it takes to build an agent.
Sure. Let's actually use the blog writing agent, because I think this might be the easiest one to explain, because again, we're not building an agent, we are training an employee, right? So we started where everyone else did, which was we went to ChatGPT and we said, write a blog post about selling a home in Philadelphia. And it would come back and it didn't sound anything like, our target audience. It would make up things, right? It would make up stats from the MLS. It would make up restaurants in the area. And so the first pass we had to do is we said, okay, we can't trust it to just write on its own. Would you trust an intern that you literally just hired? You just hired your cousin to come work for you, right? They know nothing about your business. Would you just say, go write a blog? No, you're going to give them things. You're like, all right, I don't want you to go look in the MLS. I'm going to give you the MLS data, right? So that's one thing that's very important, is like, we don't let these AIs go and train themselves on the MLS data. We specifically say, okay, for a given region, here is some data that you should use in this blog form, right? Again, don't trust it to go and look up and from its memory understand what restaurants are good in an area. We go out, we do that research first through other mechanisms we have, and we say, here are the 3 restaurants I want you to write about, and here are some reviews for them. Use that in your summary. Right, so now we've gone from what I'd say is an intern to an entry-level employee. Okay, but they still don't know about you. Right? Like, what is your brand? Who's your target audience? Are you charismatic? Are you funny? Are you serious in how you talk? So the next thing we do is we actually create a brand kit for every client. Right? Now we're starting to talk about, we're not training one employee, we're training 15,000 employees. So we have a separate AI agent that goes out and actually looks at things like your website, your social media presence, anything you give us really, and it'll start to deduce. It'll start to create this brand kit that explains who you are in the industry, how you talk, things you like. your ideal customer profile, etc. Okay, now we layer that in to our entry-level employee. Now you've got a mid-level employee. All right,
Yeah.
now we say, now create some stunning imagery. Well, the first time you do this, what's going to come out? It's going to come out with humans with 6 fingers. It's going to come out with, houses with chimneys coming out of the windows. And you're like, okay, all right. So you're a kindergartner, right? We're gonna mold you, right? And what's very cool with AI, and this is kind of like, remember when I said earlier about like harnessing fire? One of the best ways to train these employees is to do something called adversarial training, where you have one employee, one AI agent writing something or creating something, an image, a video, and you have another agent that's constantly looking at it and grading it and telling it, you suck, you suck, you suck, get better, get better, get better. And you just let them sit there in a loop and they just talk to each other. They just talk to each other for hours, right? And eventually this one starts to do things that are correct. And eventually the correcting agent, the QA agent is like, I don't have anything left, right? Now, and this is honestly not that different than how you train a human, right? They would come to you and be like, no, that first draft sucks, come back, right? No, that first image sucks, come back. But eventually they get better. So it's very, very, it's actually stunningly analogous to training a human. And it's funny how you're saying how, you're talking to that boss and you said that you are the last generation that'll be managing more humans than AI. I mean, we're already looking at our own workforce, call it, make the math easy, 500 employees at Luxury Presence.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of 2026, 18 months from now, I think we're going to see at a minimum, 3 times as many AI employees at Luxury Presence as human employees. For that same reason, right? Because even just training this, it wasn't just one entity we created. We had to create an entity that knew how to go and research restaurants. We had to create another entity that knew how to QA imagery. We had to create another entity that knew how to create a brand kit for you. And so they proliferate, and it's seriously, we're going to be managing, by the end of 2026, literally thousands of AI employees on our behalf.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's a great explanation for even if non-technical people can understand. How do you train a human employee is very similar. How do you train an AI agent, except that this can be much faster, happens without oversight, little bit oversight. Human is always in the loop. Yeah. But so I want to kind of dig a little bit into your how you built these agents. What kind of, is it have you guys partnered with a large language like a French, frontier model like OpenAI or is it like self-hosted? Just talk to me about that in terms of how you guys are.
Absolutely. Generally speaking, we do leverage the largest frontier models, but we really don't want to strategically, nor do we think it's the best idea to isolate ourselves to just one. So in fact, remember when I was talking about training that blog writing agent, we actually use all 3 of the major providers. So parts of it are done, actually maybe even 5. Parts of it are done by OpenAI, parts are done by Anthropic, parts are done by Gemini, Google's Gemini, parts of it are Perplexity, and then 1 or 2 parts are even, open source models. Yeah. And the reason for that is because even if you look at like the benchmarks out there, each one of these companies has found either intentionally or unintentionally that they are better at certain things than others, right? There's very clear benchmarks of which ones generate imagery better. And there's better that, that do maybe short summaries versus long form writing or deep research. And so we really do we actually have entire systems built around evaluating, right? We'll feed it, 10,000 use cases and then try all 3 or 4 of the large language models against it. And then we have rubrics to understand which one is best for each step along the way.
Yeah, makes sense. So before I get to my final 2 questions, I want to get to Jesse's personal AI tech stack. What are the things that you love using? And this is not about things you're testing. Yeah. I mean, how it has helped you. Like one of the things I did, Jesse, earlier in the year, I documented what I did for a whole week. Anything that's longer than 30 minutes, task-wise. Mm-hmm. Pre-AI, how much time it took me, and with AI, in certain cases, how much time it took me. And I calculated about a 35% productivity improvement. Mm-hmm. This is just me using AI in my job. Yeah. Whether it's for podcasting, email, all the things that you do. So I'm curious, what does Jesse's personal work AI tech stack look like?
Real quickly on the 30%, it is really interesting that you nailed like 35% because measuring this is crazy hard, right? It's crazy hard to really understand the savings. And there's no perfect way of doing it. But every
Yeah.
single time that we've looked internally at what kind of efficiency gains we're getting, the number is always somewhere between 30 and 40% at a minimum. At a minimum. There are some things we're
And
working on. Yeah, go ahead.
you're right. I only did it for a week and
Yeah.
I extrapolated it because these are tasks that I do every week in some capacity. So love to learn about your tech stack before I get to my final two questions.
So I'm going to give you two tools that I use like on a very regular basis, and they may
Yeah.
seem benign, but it's real. First off, I love Midjourney for
Yeah.
image generation. Right, a large part of my job as CTO running a large organization is storytelling. I love storytelling accompanied with imagery. So when I'm creating decks, when I'm creating memos, oftentimes I will go to Midjourney to help ground my either spoken word or written word in some sort of imagery that helps capture the imagination of my audience, again, whether that's internal or external. And I just remember like when I was at Autodesk and I lived in PowerPoint every single day, how many hours I would spend
Oh.
scouring the internet for like that right image. And now it's a matter of like I can get things I could never have even that would not exist on the internet out there, right? So I do deeply believe in the value of imagery as a storytelling mechanism, and it's also getting better now with video. That takes a little bit more time to play with.
Yeah.
The other one, and again, benign, like if this is everyone should be using this, but ChatGPT, but specifically not as much for writing. Yes, there are plenty of times where I use it for writing
Yeah.
or Gemini for writing, but for deep research. And
Yeah.
this is actually as much flack as GPT-5 has gotten on the internet. Like a lot of people are like, it's a step back from GPT-4 or whatever. I think the major unlock that people are overlooking is that in the GPT 4.5 days, most of my time with ChatGPT was not spent with GPT 4.5. It was spent with O3. So you had to go to the model picker and you had to pick O3, which was its more deep reasoning model, because that's where anyone, I think, who is running a business or who has large purview, that is your strategic sidekick. There was literally never a like meaty decision that I engaged on that I didn't at first at least ask the opinion of O3's deep research, right? Go out and deep research on a competitor or a technology that we were considering evaluating. I've literally now made it part of like, no engineer now is allowed to even come to me with a proposal of a new, for instance, technology vendor they want to implement without also showing me like I went to deep research and I looked at 7 alternatives, which historically would have taken 3 days of research. There's no excuse now, right? It's 15 minutes that comes back to you. And oftentimes they're like, oh, I didn't even know that vendor existed. I'm going to go and look at that one. So again, these are tools that I think everyone should be using, but I do deeply use. With ChatGPT 5, now I don't even need to go to the model picker. I just ask it a question and it's smart enough to know whether or not it's just going to blurt an answer out for me real quickly or go into deep research mode and say, hey, I'll come back in 5 minutes with an answer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've enjoyed deep research a ton for a lot of the research. And one of the big unlocks for me was when deep research first came out. Obviously, it's grown in terms of which platforms are offering. I love Gemini's deep research as well. It does a really good job. But irrespective of the platform, I think the concept of leveraging deep research as a strategic partner in any decision making you do, I think is a great takeaway there. So here was my fun question before I get to my last two. This was the construction question. You were construction technology. So I was recently in a presentation with Steve Brown. He's like a AI futurist. He worked at Google DeepMind, and he was talking a lot about not just digital workers, which sort of I knew, and then humanoid robots. And the impact of that humanoid robots in construction and driving construction costs down in terms of everything. So what is your like unfiltered take on humanoid robots as we transition to the ending the podcast here?
I'll be honest. I think we are decades away from something that is truly game changing on that front. What's hard about robotics in the actual real world? There's just so much inertia working against them. First off, I actually think that in terms of when we look at AGI, in terms of just like a computer, just software, I think America has clearly shown we're leading the pack.
Yeah.
Robotics, I do think China has some advantages over us. It has the manufacturing skills that we just really don't have anymore in America. The other thing is that they have such more tolerance for risk when it comes to using robotics in the field. Right, we are going to be, and now you're starting to get into like personal beliefs, but like in America, if there's a chance at all that a robot is going to hurt someone, we're not going to deploy it.
Legal compliance, the whole thing. Yeah.
Whereas other countries are going to say that's a risk that we're willing to take, and we know there's going to be injury and death because of it, and we're just going to carry on anyway. So I do think there are some cultural, legal, and other reasons why it's going to be hard in America. The other thing that I realized in construction, and this was an eye-opening experience for me as an engineer, is my company was in pre-construction. So we got to see all the blueprints, right? All the designs of all these amazing buildings. And we're like, this looks great, go build it. And then you go visit a job site, right? And you realize that like there's the purity of what the architect designed and the engineers designed, and then you get to actual ground floor, right? And you're actually like, and you got the construction workers there and be like, there's no way we can build it that way. And there's so many micro decisions that are made in the moment as a building's being constructed that there's no way the plans can account for. And that level of autonomy, when you're talking about a building that has to support the life of thousands of human beings, that's tricky to, again, trust to a robot. That's like, I know the plan said put that bolt there, but we're going to move it up by 2 inches and we're not going to weld it. And we know that's okay.
Yeah.
There's some concern there.
Oh, for sure. No, look, I mean, there's a lot of testing, a lot of things, but I can see maybe not construction, but I can maybe see a robot maybe not decades away that could actually clean my yard outside my house.
100%. Low
Stuff
risk,
like that.
right? Low risk. There's no chance of death, right? It doesn't have to support the life of humans. And we're seeing this already.
100%.
You've got robotic lawn mowers. You've got robotic pool cleaners. For sure. I know it's funny, but do you know what every millennial wants is a robotic laundry folder? Yes.
Oh,
Put it in my house now.
so interesting you say that, and we'll finish with the final question. So Steve Brown, in his presentation when I was watching it, demonstrated a robot that took the clothes from where you put your clothes for wash, took it to the thing, put it in the washer, pressed the buttons, took it out, folded the clothes, and put it back in your thing. So, I mean, I'm sure the next decade is going to be fascinating on a variety of levels, right? So here's my final question, Jesse. This has been interesting, very interesting, good conversation. I appreciate you jumping on. So are you a book person or a podcast person? Podcast. So is there one podcast that you listen to that has probably influenced you deeply than others that you'd recommend to the audience?
I'm a fervent listener to the AI Daily Brief.
AI Daily Brief.
The AI Daily Brief. And what I really appreciate is just generally in life, I'm not a long form content consumer, whether that's written or oral. It's 5 minutes, right? In 5 minutes, it just hits you with the day's headlines. And then there's a 15-minute segment afterwards where he goes deeper if you want. And there are some of those that I would say are very applicable to real estate agents and others that are more applicable to me as a technologist. But those first 5 minutes are generic to anyone, right? It's just keeping you up on the news. And I think it's so important because, as you said, this technology is increasing exponentially. Our default as humans is to think linearly, and at a minimum, you just have to be aware of all the changes that are incoming to even have a shot at thinking exponentially.
Yeah. I've heard it a few times. I've not heard it daily. Mm-hmm. So I got my own list of podcasts that I listen to, but I definitely add that to my list since you mentioned it. So last question. So if you had to give an advice to a real estate agent, because many of our listeners are agents, broker owners, thought leaders in the real estate space, what is the one piece of, it doesn't have to be AI, anything. It could be anything that you feel like one single piece of advice you'd give your younger self in the real estate industry that would be beneficial for our listeners?
At this point, I think it's in everyone, it's a mandatory that everyone needs to carve out a non-trivial amount of time to explore the tooling out there every day. You said yourself, right? You did an experiment with your own life where you measured everything for a week, and this is what's going to separate the next phase of workers, whether it's in real estate or any industry, is who are the people that are going to learn how to leverage this technology, because there's going to be a window of, call it 1 to 3 years, where the people who learn how to leverage these technologies are going to have such a substantial competitive advantage. At some point, AI maybe catches up and everyone just kind of like wakes up one day and like their work is done for them. Okay, that's fine. Like we'll worry about that in 3, 5, 10 years. But there's a window of time right now where the people who understand how to use this and take the time to use it are going to have a substantial competitive advantage. But you have to put the time in.
Yeah, I have to put the time in. Yeah, stay curious. What is that? Stay hungry, stay foolish.
Yeah.
You know, never hurt anyone for sure. So this has been great, Jesse. Thank you for hopping on, and I hope I can meet you in real life sometime soon. I don't know if you're coming up to the Riz Media thing or
Yeah.
I think maybe your CEO is coming up, but I'm sure we'll catch up soon. But I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.